Hey, what's good, people? I am Cool Blue. This is
Lady Blue.
And this will be another episode of Blue Talk, episode 23. I got it this week. This episode, let me put my phone on vibrate before I mess around and screw something up. Okay, cool, we good. Sundown Towns. In light of the climate and everything that's kind of going on right now, I felt like this topic definitely was very necessary. It's something that's not touched on as much when it comes to like racial discrimination and things of that nature, due to the interest in property and how much property is valued in this country nowadays. So I figured we shed light on it. Like I said, before I do anything, I have the definition of everything. Sundown towns, sunset towns or gray towns, all white municipalities of neighborhoods in the United States that practice a form of segregation by excluding non-whites via some combination of discriminatory local laws, intimidation, and violence. Keyword: local laws. Vote locally.
And violence.
Yeah, and violence. But I mean, like, just getting into
Yeah.
because we were just tapped into voting like about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that are done through these sundown towns are through local law, and how they're still allowed to operate to this day is through local law. So if you get out and vote, because a lot of people who think that voting doesn't matter, but that's neither here nor there. Getting off topic. First topic, something that my wife has harped on a lot in these past few years is redlining. She's been a big advocate for it. She's talked about it more often than not. She actually got me tapped and tuned in. Not that I wasn't tapped into it before, but like she kind of raised the awareness a little bit more than I did. So giving flowers while smell them. But first thing we're going into with redlining is sundown signs. Back in the 60s and 70s, certain towns were allowed to display sundown signs outside of their surrounding counties and communities. And these sundown signs basically were like a warning shot to people of that if you were caught there after sundown,
they have no control what happens to you.
Exactamundo. And it was until the 70s, I believe, that these signs started to like slightly vanish. The signs themselves vanished, but the communities stayed the same. Hence redlining. I'll kind of let you tap into it because you have been kind of like on the forefront of redlining for a while, and then I'll kind of piggyback off of.
Basically, redlining started in like the 50s and 60s to keep, even before then, but it started showing up, the term, and it started showing up on paperwork in like the 50s and 60s, basically outlining communities or districts within a city that only certain ethnic groups can live in, or redline most of the time black people out of certain neighborhoods.
Right.
So granted, a lot of neighborhoods celebrate, especially here in Baltimore, we celebrate like our different ethnic cultures, like Polish, Greek, things like that. But a lot of that also comes from redlining. Like, the prime example, the neighborhood that we live in Baltimore. When I first moved here, it was, I won't say predominantly white, but it was about half and half. It was more white people than it was black people on my block. But if you go and see the deed of my house, when it was originally built in like 1940 or 50 something, if not further back, it was saying that you couldn't sell the house to a black family.
Right.
You couldn't sell it to a Jewish family.
Right.
And the thing about here in Baltimore, we have a predominant, like a really big Jewish community, especially here on the East Coast.
Right.
Jewtown kind of popped up out of necessity. So these cultural communities, even though it's great to hold on for like ethnic and things like that, it also shows like why certain areas of Baltimore look the way they do versus other parts.
Yeah.
And it also explains food deserts. So one of the big things that I complain about when it comes to redlining and how it relates to black people or people of color, because Hispanic people suffer from it too, is the fact that with redlining, they tend to zone out markets and things like that and do things that decrease your property value.
Yeah.
No matter if you're low income or not, every neighborhood can support a market. But especially here in Baltimore, there are a ton of food deserts, especially in our neighborhood.
Yeah, we just touched on that. As a matter of fact, we touched on that with our neighbors the other day. Like, they're replacing markets with Dollar Trees.
I don't need a dollar store.
We got $1 billion stores within these couple of blocks, but they're replacing markets with Dollar Trees.
Community of color, like fresh vegetables, we need that. But it's like, because of things like that and because of councilmen or whoever controls districts, sometimes neighborhoods get underserved and don't get the things they need, like markets. Like now we have 2 gyms in our neighborhood, which I'm so pumped that a black neighborhood has 2 gyms. But where's our market?
Yeah, I'm about to say. It's crazy.
It's things like that, and you can notice it even with like how Fells Point is right next to a black neighborhood, but look at Fells Point and the schools in Fells Point versus the schools and stuff further up on Broadway.
Yeah.
Redlining affects not only just how we feel as people and equal rights, it also affects our children and our learning systems.
Right.
So that's why I always try to stress redlining, because it's predatory, it's open racism. Yeah. It's just, you could do it legally.
Yeah, basically. I'm about to say it's a well-known secret.
So that's why I'm like, we gotta know about redlining. Like, we gotta know this, like, wait a minute, why do I have to drive to the county line to get groceries?
Exactly, Mondo. Moving on, second subtopic is violence and intimidation. Basically what she was speaking on as far as like redlining goes, like the police who police these neighborhoods tend to use tactics of violence and intimidation. And if you know what you know, like there have been like multiple, even bringing it into today's Muslim, where like people of color are going missing at an alarming rate, and people are kind of sort of touching on it, but not really. Like, it's like, it wasn't until like, like this, like the whole sex trafficking, like thing kind of got re-sparked, and they talked about what was going on here in the DMV and whatever the case may be. And then when women outside of the color, I don't say outside of the color area, but white women started coming up missing when it became an actual issue. So, and that's where redlining doesn't take effect, where it's like everybody's involved, everybody's, like a part of the, conversation. And that's when, incorporating us matters. But getting back into Sundown Towns, like these towns, people of color were allowed to like come into, like now during the day. Well, they weren't even allowed in there then, but barely. But like
just to do business and get the hell out.
Yeah. So along with a lot of these signs, it was one sign in particular that I kept running across online, where it's like, "Don't let the sun set on you here." And to me, that's painstakingly obvious of, get the fuck out of here. Like, if you still around when this sun go down, some things might happen to you, or you might come up missing. You know what I mean? And like that kind of kept folks away from those communities for decades, and still keep certain folks, because it's certain communities here that black folks just won't tap into, and it's well known. Like, you can sit back and talk to a handful of people, and they'll let you know it's certain communities here in Baltimore and just in Maryland in general, like, that you just can't or won't tap into, or your application even like I was talking to somebody online yesterday, and not to ramble, but it's like you could have the money and the best credit scores, and your application will still get dropped to the bottom of the
right. Or like we knew some affluent black people who moved up the street to Joppa, Maryland, and harassed their mother that was a senior until they moved.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And like, especially here in Baltimore, it's never touched on. And that's one of the reasons, as I got older and learned the history of Turner Station, I'm so glad that the people who live and are from that community put it up on such a high horse, because Turner Station actually was one of the first neighborhoods built in Baltimore really for black people.
Right.
And it was one of the safest places for black people to live in. And it was nestled in not too far from Bethlehem Steel, so that way they could work there. And it was also one of the first areas in Baltimore where a lot of people who migrated here stopped off at before branching out to other areas in Baltimore. But it was basically like a safe haven, almost like a Harlem for Baltimore, between that and Pennsylvania Avenue. Because let's keep it real, where Turner Station is located, the surrounding neighborhoods are not the friendliest, nor do I want to be caught there once the sun
goes down.
And that goes for North Point.
Yeah.
Grew up around there most of my life, but I noticed even as a child, once that sun went down or past a certain time, we was not in those areas. And I grew up with grandparents who are from the South. I mean, my grandfather grew up here, but he's from Virginia. And he used to tell me in a heartbeat, like, nah. We don't hang out there. If you don't know nobody who lived there and you leaving right back out, no.
That kind of takes us into our next point, which is a well-known secret, still on the topic of redlining. But like she was saying, like pretty much piggybacked into it. Like it's certain places like that we go here and we try, because anybody who know us, we travel, and if it's a spot that we want to go to, we tapping in first to say like, okay, this is this is that, this is this is that, and we crossing all T's and dotting all I's. What neighborhood is it in? Where it's located at? How long y'all gonna be there? How long we gonna be there?
Is it safe?
Is it safe? You know, so
because it's funny, I have a whole like white side of my family. And when I used to live up there and we would go out places, I would stop them and be like, look, am I okay to go there? And they will always laugh or brush it off, but it's like, no. Am I okay to go there? Like, that's not a fake question, and that's not a joke. Like,
and it's like certain communities, it's well-known secrets. Like I said, like today, where it's like
Broner Highway area.
I've
been called a cocksucking nigga there. Like it's just certain places. I know for me that once the sun go down, I'm in my car and I'm coming back to Northeast
familiar
grounds.
I'm coming back to familiar grounds, and see, and that's the portion that like people realistically don't understand, because I put a post up on Facebook the other day. Being black is having to check out a certain establishment or a neighborhood before you visit, because it's like it's a lot of things that will happen in that neighborhood that won't necessarily be reported or never reported, and the locals who live there know it and they're okay with it. And it's just as simple as that. But not to get too much off, like this actually kind of brings us into our next point, which is racial restrictions. And coming into racial restrictions, property. Property is something that a lot of people don't necessarily own, or of us, it's like that we're learning now the value of property and owning your own, and having and having money, and liquid assets and things of that nature. Like, we're realistically just starting to tap into it. Like, not saying that we haven't before, but the value of property wasn't necessarily taught to us as much.
I won't even say, I'll just say the system has slight balanced it where it's easier for us to get property and attain it and to spread that knowledge down more, because it is people who know the value of property. It's just that our banking system, along with other systems, still sit in systemic racism and try to make things harder.
No, I'm talking about on a grand scale, not necessarily, because I mean, our grandparents, like I said, my grandfather always taught me like the property, like the value of property and things of that nature. I'm speaking on an overall general, like whatever. Like,
I'm not taking my foot off society now.
I'm not saying that you. I'm not saying that you have to. What I'm saying is that, like, in a grand scheme of things, like, it's not necessarily, I mean, it's not taught in schools, not to us.
Right.
Like, I'm about to say, like, that's why I'm saying, like, I'm not taking an official stab saying, like, oh yeah, like, you know, whatever, but, like, it wasn't taught to us.
Right.
Like, the value of it wasn't taught to us.
Right.
So it's like, if we gonna speak on it, let's speak on it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like, it ain't no need of dancing around it. So that's pretty much where I was kind of, you know, pushing it. But when it comes to that, when I was digging, I kind of found something about the Midwest when I was, you know, doing my research on Sundown Towns, and Ohio and Indiana in particular kept coming across. But Ohio definitely had a heavy amount of sundown towns. You know, a lot of people, when they accredit the sundown towns, they immediately think South and Deep South. And the Midwest, quiet as kept, still has a lot of those, you know, like sundown towns that you pretty much still to this day can't float through. You know, because like to me, like the East Coast is kind of like, you know, like us, Philadelphia, DC, the Carolinas, whatever the case may be, Atlanta. It's where a lot of us reside at. I mean, you have people out in the Midwest, you know, like Chicago, whatever the case may be, Cleveland.
More diverse. But it's more culturally diverse.
Yeah. And it's like, it's almost like I was saying, like a well-known secret that where it's like how many documentaries have you seen about Ohio where it's been like, hey, like certain places here, like, you still get that. And it's like, and I'm not trying to double down on Ohio, but Ohio and Indiana in particular kept coming across my radar when I was researching Sundown Towns. And it's one in particular, I can't think of the name of the town, where it's a mayor in I want to say Ohio. I want to say this one is Ohio. He has a statue, but like, this was pretty much well-known secret that this was Klan country. Like, and he pretty much ran it segregated. Like, they knew it was segregated. They pretty much praised him for it being segregated. I got to go back and do my research on it. I did this, like, I was also tapped into this a couple of nights at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So like, but it was this one mayor in particular. I'm so mad I didn't take his name down, but like, he has a statue up today. And he was basically infamously known for keeping the town segregated. And it was pretty much known as Klan country. And if you were driving through there color, it was like you had to get from one side to the other. Like, somebody will pretty much fact check me, but it was like you had to get from one side to the other. And riding through that town, you just automatically knew you ride there throughout the day. Like, you don't even touch that town at night. And that pretty much brings us back to our next topic, our next point, which is places and spaces. On our travels, my wife and I, we stop at different restaurants, gas stations, memorabilia shops, whatever the case may be. And there's times where we go through like certain parts of VA, certain parts of the Carolinas, because we kind of go up and down the East Coast.
Hell, certain parts of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, of course, Pennsylvania.
Because that the South up on the northern border.
Yeah, I'm about to say certain parts of Pennsylvania where we'll kind of pull over to the side, like, oh, okay, like it's a BP or Sheets a couple miles, and it's like you kind of pull over and you like, I think I'm gonna wait till the next one.
One too many rebel flags.
Yeah, one too many rebel flags. One too like
hell to the
don't tread on me flags. Like when you start to notice the signs, it's like, all right, cool. Like you can dibble dabble if you want.
We're going to stop in a major city where there's a lot of lights. Like no.
Yeah. And honestly enough, like I said, like I feel like that has kept us alive more often than not. Because like I said, we travel a lot. So like you said, you start to notice the signs. Like you get out of the car and they staring at you for a lengthy period of time, or you ride through a certain community and you see a bunch of rebel flags hanging around, like it's made painstakingly obvious. Don't be here too long. Stop, get your gas, and get the fuck. Like, but
and like we said, like I know we was talking on the Midwest and stuff too, but we got it here in the East Coast. Don't.
Oh yeah.
Don't sit up here and think it's not going on. And think it's only a South thing. Like Cool Blue said, like everybody always want to touch on the South aspect, and he touched on the Midwest. But there's a lot of that going on in the East Coast, and Maryland has a few racist communities that you should not travel through.
Yeah.
Where the Klan is still bright and happy, and from experience in Pennsylvania, South Central, granted it's getting more diverse now, but I have had instances where people have yelled white power to me. The KKK is still here and alive. I believe it.
I'm about to say, I mean, honestly enough, like we were just sitting back talking about the Vince Crab House situation that happened a couple weeks ago. Well, that was about like a week or so ago. I said a couple weeks ago. Like that, the area where Vince Crab House is.
Middle River, Essex.
I'm about to say, like,
work out there. I used to hang at a bar out there, but that was only because we had 5 or 6 individuals with us. If it wasn't that,
yeah. I'm about to say, like, even the most recent incident was I keep feeling like I'm mispronouncing this. Ozo Bay, Harbor East was not built for.
With Baltimore being 61% black,
yeah,
or 60% black, like,
and like she touched on before, and not to cut you off, like she touched on beforehand, like Harbor East, Fells Point, it's projects right in the backyard.
Legit, they put all these high rises, condos, expensive stores right across the street from some of the poorest communities, along with John Hopkins on the other side of that poor community.
Exactly.
So it's like, because certain people live on a certain street in that zip code, their kids get to go to better schools, versus the kids that live in our projects don't get to go to better schools. And it's
a difference of night and day. Like, I mean, like, painstakingly obvious. Like, I mean, like, you can pretty much, like, come down off of 83 and make a wrong turn.
You could be walking across the street and you're in a completely different neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that is a problem.
Yeah.
Because that means that it is a wage gap. That means there is an ownership gap. And again, these people are living in food deserts. Like, so the people who are quote unquote rich in these communities can afford to travel across to another community that was not built for us, next to another projects to go to the market.
Yeah, I'm about to say, because what you got right there, even like Orleans, you got to travel like a ways down to get to like the Aldi's.
Yes.
That's kind of like, I'm about to say, like, but it's nothing in that center area.
Besides Fells Point,
and it's a Burger King.
Yeah, a Burger King.
it's like a Burger King and a Popeyes nuzzled in, but it's like nothing else outside of that.
They
besides,
don't want no vegetables.
I'm about to say, no. You know what? What is it? It's that Save-A-Lot that's kind of tucked off in that little, like,
Save-A-Lot.
Yeah, like Save-A-Lot. I'm about to say, but like,
and not jogging it, because I go there every now and again too, but
yeah, I'm about to say, like, those areas, it's like, if you don't necessarily drive or don't necessarily feel like catching a bus, you SOL. Like, I'm about to say, you can't walk pretty much nowhere. I'm about to say, minus a corner store or a Chinese carry out.
And they got our grandmas trying to buy healthy frozen food from a dollar store.
Yeah, like you got Dollar Tree, Dollar Buys, Dollar General. Man, we got more dollar stores than you can. Like, how about this? Dollar Deals, Dollar Buys, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, Dollar everything. But they won't put a market nowhere near.
Meanwhile, your granny gotta catch the bus 10 country miles just to get groceries.
Like, man, that used to break my heart watching a elderly lady like hop off the bus and she got like 25 bags in her hands, arms shaking, whatever. Like, and it's like, even if you like help her off the bus, God only knows how many blocks she gotta walk to get to where she gotta go. Like, that's a whole nother conversation in itself. But getting to the last topic, which is modern day, and we've kind of been tapped into the modern day portion of it a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of been blended.
Yeah, it's kind of been blended, but you know, like I said, it speaks volumes where it's like, just because the signs themselves have been removed, the principles and the sex in certain neighborhoods, like, it's still there, you know, like, and like I said, it's a well-known secret that certain communities that you know you're not allowed in, or that you know that you're not wanted in, and people move into these communities, get harassed, get stuff sprayed on their lawn, burning crosses. How many, like, who was like a couple people were just hung a few days ago.
And
like,
it's all ruled as suicide. Even
and it's all ruled, yeah, and it's all ruled out as suicide. I mean, yeah, like I was saying, and we're not surprised, but it's like ruled out as suicide, getting shot while jogging.
And I'm gonna put this out there,
like, my
for all
God,
these law enforcement companies who are ruling these black people hanging as suicides. Every black person, like, even if they're not tapped into their past, their cultural past, we know the significance of a hanging.
Yeah.
So a lot of us are not going to go to that as our first choice to go out. And I'm not saying that, it's just, it's a certain thing that hits with us to see a body swinging. And I just don't see how people like, oh yeah, this is how I'm going to take myself out. And if 5 people,
yeah,
within 2 states of each other,
yeah, my God, yeah. and it's not that I'm laughing for like whatever, but it's just like, it's kind of like you see it happen so often, and they feed you the bottom of the barrel so much that you just kind of look and you're like,
which plate of bullshit I'm getting?
Yeah, like you said, which plate of bullshit am I getting today? Basically, in a nutshell, what she said. But we talked about experiences. We talked about, like, we actually tapped into experiences, knowing the signs, so we can kind of sort of get into our final thoughts. And I'll kick it off where I started earlier. Vote locally. A lot of these laws that are allowed, that would, like, before I even get into that, you talk about stuff like our parents were born in the 60s, and unless you died, you know, early in life, majority of those people who are around and who were born in the 60s are still kicking, are still around, breathing, like, you know, like, and it's,
my grandmother is 81. So she's seen all of this.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's like you sit back and you think of, and you take that in itself into context. Now, fast forward to modern day, where you really see, where we sit back and we're saying it. Like, I think, like, my father was like the other day, where he was like, I was hoping by the time y'all lifetime came, by the time y'all generation came around and y'all got old enough, that y'all wouldn't have to experience this at the clip that we experienced it. And I'm like, shoot, my guy. And so laws is put into place, I'm not surprised that it's still going on. I mean,
right.
Shoot, like we just sat back and said, like, you build wealth around us. And it's been happening for years. And it's like, it's just another way of basically saying, like, we see you, we know you exist. Do we care? So, but yeah, like, vote locally. That's where I'm sitting. That's where I'm tapped in at. You know, like, for all of those people who still saying that voting doesn't matter, like,
they're lying. Yeah. Well,
I don't want to spend too long harping on it. I'm about to say, because like I've had some lengthy conversations online these past couple days, and I don't want to bring a certain energy to the table. So I'ma let her kick it in, and then like, you know, we'll just end it at that.
all right. Well, my final thoughts are for Sundown Towns. Just stop supporting. Put your money where your mouth is. No, I would say, as someone of color, whether black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, do your research, because even though these groups outwardly target black people, a lot of times they target you all as well.
Exactly.
Like Kubu said, please get involved with your local elections. Figure out who's running your district so redlining can stop being a thing. As far as knowing the signs, I'm a pretty unique person regardless, so I kind of get looked at no matter where I go. But one of the signs I will say about a sundown town is if people look at you and kind of have an attitude while they looking at you. Or
people stare at you for a lengthy period of time, like
like they never seen a black person.
Like they never seen a black person
or whatever
before.
You are.
Yeah.
So I would take that as a sign, like, especially if you're rolling solo or with only 2 or 3 people, we can't be here too long.
Or if you see a bunch of Trump stickers. if you in town and you see a bunch of Trump stickers, banners, flags, like you know what the climate is. Because
I will automatically, like, of course, the quote unquote Confederate flag, like all that nonsense. So that's my final thoughts on it. I just want y'all to be safe. We're not saying that these places are right. We're just saying what to look out for and to be safe out there. Also to bring attention that racism is pretty systemic. Yeah. So it's just those things, and I really want us to, if establishment, like Maya Angelou said, if someone shows you who they are, believe them. So if establishment or a group of establishments that own whatever show you who they are, believe them. And the best way to fight the good fight, spend your money where you're valued.
And this has been another episode of Blue Talk. I am Cool Blue. This is
Lady Blue.
And she got the next topic. I don't necessarily know what the topic is. We kind of figure it out as we go.
I have it for y'all in a couple of days.
Talk to you.
Love y'all.